We are at war, and that is very clear. So for all of us, we have to protect ourselves from Satan and the demons.
Hi friends, I saw this video on JEHOVAH'S entitled Our Witnessing Conquers Satan, and I knew that I just had to share my comments. In this video, I am going to show you how the Watchtower Corporation uses the very powerful emotion of fear to control and manipulate their followers in order to further their agenda. So when I was a Jehovah's Witness, they used the fear of Armageddon as a fear mechanism, but lately it seems like their machinations have changed. Take a look.
The spiritual fight is on to the finish. Working out our salvation with fear and trembling is essential. Let's learn why the devil is so infuriated, why he hates Jehovah's servants. On Revelation chapter 12, but verse 11, and they, that's the anointed remnant, conquered him, that's the devil. He hates that. The anointed conquer Satan. They prove him to be a liar. They're loyal, they're integrity keepers, their conduct, their words, everything that they do conquers the devil. They conquer him by their word of their witness. Notice, there is a direct connection between conquering Satan and our preaching activity. That's what he hates. And that is why he relentlessly attacks our preaching activity and tries to stir up opposition. He's conquered by means of the preaching work.
He totally misquotes and misapplies the scripture because the verse is very clear that it's speaking about followers of the Lamb and that they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony in Jesus Christ. It's not about anointed Jehovah's Witnesses, nor is it about their preaching work. Their preaching work does nothing to the devil, friends. Nowhere does it say that he was conquered here. This is just a warfare term used by this guy in order to further his fear-mongering. Okay, now watch how he tries to turn and twist the book of Amos into persecution of the witnesses. Amos was from the southern kingdom and was sent by God to pronounce judgment against the very wealthy and idolatrous northern kingdom 2,800 years ago. It's a very Jewish book written to the Jewish people who built a false temple for calf worship in their city called Bethel. Now, I did a video on this, all about this, about a year ago, and you can see that video here. Plus, I've also placed a link down in the description box, so be sure to take a look at that so you can see what that was all about. Amos also speaks about a future restoration for the Jewish people. And just on a side note, Romans chapter 11 makes it very clear that the Jewish people are still God's chosen people, that the Jehovah's Witness organization or the modern day church has not replaced them. So read Romans chapter 11 to learn some more information about that, because that's called replacement theology, and that is a false teaching. All right, so listen, back to Mark Numair.
And note some striking similarities between our day and Amos' day. Jeroboam was the king, and he put calf worship there in the city called Bethel, and calf worship was now a part of the religion there at the 10-tribe kingdom. But let's see what happens, how the opposition mounts, and how it's similar, in our day. So Amaziah is the priest of this state religion of calf worship. Bethel is the center of apostate religion. What does Amaziah do? He sends a message to King Jeroboam of Israel. Notice now how the religious entity, Amaziah, sends the message to the state, over to the government, to King Jeroboam, and gets him all worked up. And he says, Amos is conspiring against you right in the midst of the house of Israel. This was an act of treason. So you see this lying report went straight to Jeroboam from Amaziah, the priest. So again, a misleading, distorted way of presenting matters. Distorted half-truths in an effort to get the official ban on the preaching activity of Amos. Do we see something similar today? We note striking similarities between the methods of Amaziah and those employed by the opposers of Jehovah's people. Just as Amaziah tried to silence Amos, so certain religious leaders today do the same. They try to block the preaching work of Jehovah's servants. Amaziah falsely accused Amos of treason. Today, some religious leaders falsely accuse Jehovah's people of being a threat to national security.
Friends, let me remind you of the November global campaign where, according to JEHOVAH'S, millions of Jehovah's Witnesses around the world were sending out letters, plus this special magazine about God's kingdom, to elected officials at every level of government, basically telling them that their God, Jehovah, was going to destroy human governments.
Distorted half-truths in an effort to get the official ban on the preaching activity of Amos.
Let me ask you, does this sound like a threat to national security? Think about it. They talk about the harm that human rule has done, and that the world needs better rulers, and that human governments still rule on earth, and Jesus will completely destroy all opposers and end human rulership. Then they contacted news agencies globally announcing this special campaign. And here is just a small sampling. So let me ask you, friends, do you think that governments, if they even take the time to read this information, will consider Jehovah's Witnesses to be a threat to national security? Would you? They are manipulating scripture and putting forth quite an effort to become a threat to the state, while at the same time preparing their followers for war that they are bringing on themselves. It's not persecution, friends. I don't know if you've seen Jason Zelda's video on the intense letter writing campaign that crippled the Russian postal system. But if you haven't, there's a link down in the description box. It's very detailed. You should check it out.
What would Amos do? Would he back down? Would he be intimidated? Would he cower in fear? Would he run away from his assignment? He was just a shepherd boy, this hotbed of activity there at Bethel, apostate center. It's interesting that he didn't go off into some area where there were no people, but he was right there at the nerve center. Amazing. Amos. Really, when you think about this man and how he just wanted to do Jehovah's work, Jehovah's will, he was not intimidated, and neither are we. When it comes to speaking Jehovah's word, we will not disobey Jehovah God. Even in the lands where we have these modern-day Amaziahs fomenting cruel persecution, like Amos, we keep on proclaiming, this is what Jehovah says. Today, look at us. Look at Jehovah's people, earthwide, trying to help people.
Amos was called by God. And let me remind you that not one single thing that Amos said failed. Everything that Amos said came true. Amos does not foreshadow anything concerning the Jehovah's Witness organization or the governing body, the arrogant men who live in this protected fortress in upstate New York, while their followers are left to fend for themselves if the governments choose to react to their prophetic threats. For some time now, Jehovah's Witness literature has been discussing armies and warfare and battle. It's very different than when I was a Jehovah's Witness and it was all about Armageddon. There's a definite connection that I'm afraid could potentially get them in trouble. God was with Amos. God was holding the very wealthy northern kingdom accountable for their actions.
Why are we talking about this to the Bethel family? Because we are the support group. We are kingdom support services. In any war, we have to have a supply line. If that supply line is cut off from the front lines, those front lines people are in trouble. And in any war, the idea is to cut off. The enemy wants to cut off that supply line, wants to sever the supply line. It demoralizes the troops. That's our job. We are the supply line. It's a noble, honorable work to help the preaching work continue to move forward. So there's only one option. You leave me one decision to make. It's military confrontation. And that's the way it will be in our day. There's one option, military confrontation, because people will not come back to Jehovah. Then what will happen? Chapter 4, verse 12. Get ready to meet your God.